Government regulators come to censor online speech, and on the day of the reshuffle, Sajid Javid is pushed out by Dominic Cummings. Hello everyone and welcome to today's show. Before we start explaining the background, I'm actually just packing to get to the airport to get back to London. It's the last day in New York. We have a lot to actually talk about today. But before we actually start, because we're going to cover what's happening with the government regulators, they're going to censor free speech and free press online. And also we're going to discuss the reshuffle today. Obviously at the time when I'm making this video, the reshuffle is still ongoing. I have limited information. By the time I get to the airport, we're probably going to have a new Prime Minister. But before we begin, yesterday's video we talked about the trade deal between the UK and the EU. There were some people in the comment section who either weren't paying attention or misunderstood the whole thing or didn't watch the whole show. There are two aspects to the trade talks. One is the demands from both sides. And on that point, obviously, the European Union have a lot of ridiculous demands, including taking control of the UK's fisheries for 25 years and a number of other issues. Obviously, the defence union when it comes to Europe. And the second thing is obviously the approach to the negotiations. That's what we discussed yesterday. We weren't really talking about level playing field because obviously the EU demands level playing field, which is the UK government should say no to. Yesterday we were talking about the approach to the beginning, to start the negotiations. Until yesterday, Ursula von der Leyen and the European Union kept saying that, the UK can't have their cake and eat it, and we wouldn't really give them a proper trade deal. Now they've changed their tune and said, you know what, we need you more than we need you need us. They didn't say that obviously, but that's what they meant, and they are willing to create a tailor-made British deal. Now this is where it gets interesting because now the demands start. The demands that the EU have and the UK have doesn't mean this is a deal. This is just the beginning of the negotiations. Both sides will have ridiculous demands and red lines, and it just starts from here. And it's our job to hold Boris Johnson's government to account to make sure that they don't give up anything and our sovereignty and say no to level playing field. Now, let's begin the show because we have a more crucial thing to talk about, which is our future. And not just this YouTube channel, but free speech online. Government have introduced are proposing a new idea. It hasn't actually gone through yet, but they're discussing it and it could go through. Basically, the government are proposing to end the free open internet. They are putting Ofcom, obviously the government regulator that's currently in charge of regulating the broadcasters. They want Ofcom to also be in charge of the internet. Yeah. Now, if this goes through, this could be very bad for free speech and free press online. The advocates for freedom, like myself, we know that how bad it could get. The whole concept of 1984 and Big Brother could happen, but a lot of people in the West are so complacent and they trust the government and the state so much. And they say, if you've got nothing to hide, don't worry, they're not going to come after you. They're going to minimize harm. They're going after harm. And the problem is, who's in charge of basically drawing the lines and identifying what's harm, what's bad, what's good in terms of speech. So basically, let's go through the bullet points of what this could actually create. Ofcom will create guidelines to instruct any company with user-generated content, this includes obviously YouTube, about how to manage online censorship. This is obviously an article done by Guido Fawkes, and they're right, because this also could include comment sections. So actually, even YouTube comment sections, the sort of things that you guys comment, they could actually come after you if what you say is kind of edgy. Ofcom will also be given powers to draw up details of how the internet regulation would actually work. This will obviously take power away from elected politicians, because this will be faceless bureaucrats in charge and no one can actually fire them. They will be completely in charge. This is the establishment. Companies will also be expected to remove illegal content. Now, this might sound good, and we know what they mean, the extreme content, which we already have laws in place, which is ridiculous. But the issue is they will also create rules for content that is not illegal, but has the potential to cause harm. Yes, this goes back to the whole anti-free speech laws that we have in this country. Now, if you're watching this from America, you guys are still lucky that you do have free speech written in law. In the UK, in Canada, we don't have free speech. We think we have free speech. Generally speaking, we do, but fundamentally, not really, because you could insult someone, say something. And the issue is obviously offence is subjective, but the government wants to be in charge. For example, the government has also confirmed that legal speech is in scope for censorship. It is often not immediately clear what is illegal and what is legal speech, meaning regulation would force major companies, including YouTube, to take an overly censorious approach in the face of fines, jail time, and website blocks. The risk-based and proportionate approach gives high levels of discretion to Ofcom staff. And Guido readers may be interested to note that Ofcom's new chief executive is a diversity and inclusion champion for the civil service. Now, to give you the example of what's actually written in this proposal, in number 7 says that legislation will only apply to companies that provide services or use functionality on their website which facilitate the sharing of user-generated content or user interactions, for example, through comments, forums, or video sharing. Yep. So it's not really about the extreme harm and the sort of things that a website already censor. And it makes no sense because there are already laws in place. All you have to do is to just basically enforce them. This is if any of you has actually watched the Minority Report, the movie with Tom Cruise, this is basically it. They want to limitize a potential harm in the future, a potential illegal activity before it's actually happened. And who's going to be in charge of saying what you can or can't say? And YouTube channels will be, especially the YouTube channels on the right, will be hit by this because we're not talking about the sort of things that certain people will say that is extreme. They're talking about, again, it's anti-free speech laws. So if I, for example, in a certain video, say something against Guy Verhofstadt and call him an idiot or something, that would be harm against that individual, and my channel will be taken down. So that's the scope that we have. The Adam Smith Institute obviously are fighting against this, including other pro-liberty groups. And we have obviously Matthew Lesh, one of the representatives, who said that, make no mistake, free speech is under threat. The government is proposing the most censorious online speech regime in the Western world. We must not be fooled. The inevitably woke bureaucrats in Ofcom will be deciding what sort of speech is and is not allowed across much of the internet. They will have extraordinary discretion to decide who to target and what is harmful. This is a recipe for disaster for anyone that thinks differently to the Notting Hill set. Any correct but unpopular opinions will not just come under attack from the Twitterati, but by law itself. Now, earlier today, I spoke with Matthew Lesh himself on this channel, and this is what he had to say.
We should be extremely concerned about the government's announcement that Ofcom will have the power to censor the internet. What the government announced yesterday in response to the initial consultation into the online harms white paper is that Ofcom will have responsibility to create guidelines to tell companies with user-generated content about what kind of content they can and can't allow on their websites. Now, that not only includes the likes of Facebook and Twitter, but it also means YouTube pages. It means people's personal blogs. It potentially even means news websites that have comment sections. Now, shockingly, the government will not only be trying to address illicit content, something that everyone agrees should not be on the internet, but they're also trying to deal with content, and I quote, that is not illegal but has the potential to cause harm.
Now, at the time that they're basically coming after us, the independent content creators, they are also defending their own establishment. The BBC have hit back to basically in the light of obviously the new proposals to reform the BBC, get rid of the TV license. They are coming back to defend themselves. Yes, the BBC chairman, Sir David Clementi, has warned over subscription fee. He has, because they're afraid of losing what they have. He said that sitting behind a paywall, it would no longer be the place that brings the country together for the Strictly Final or Gavin and Stacey on Christmas Day, all the programs that they have. Nor would it be the place that could turn to celebrate live important moments we enjoy as a nation, like royal weddings or Jubilee or Olympic successes. So the big events that happen in the country and globally in general. So the sort of things that people want to get together to watch, right? For example, Premier League, football games, and all the other sports games that you have to pay Sky Sports or other kind of Sky packages to watch. And people do that. People already pay Sky Sports and they get together and they watch a football match. It's the same thing. It's not like if you make the BBC a subscription-based service, people are going to stop watching royal weddings or Jubilee events and stuff. Get a grip. On top of that, the BBC have now hired Greta Thunberg to start a new series on climate change. The teen activist Greta Thunberg has been hired by the BBC for a new series on climate change. Why? I don't know, because the BBC are not supposed to be political. They're not supposed to be taking sides. But the cameras will capture her quiet moments, writing speeches, and growing up while battling to save the planet. Oh, go on, Greta. I don't know. I really don't understand this, because you would never see the BBC hiring someone from the opposite side, a climate skeptic, someone, or any other topic. It doesn't have to be climate. You don't really see them hiring them to actually have a series. It always has to be pro-establishment. Now, this is a very serious matter for me personally and for all of us, because we are starting a new media movement, and if not my channel, other channels will be massively hit by this anyway. So I am right now proposing, I'm coming back to London for a reason. I'm basically cutting my New York trip short to get back to start hopefully an APPG in Parliament as a group, but also a new media movement to tackle this. I already have spoken to a number of big names out there to basically get together and start something. I have a lot of proposals which I'll be announcing very soon. We have a lot of new great ideas. We're going to have obviously national tour going around the country and getting on obviously the broadcast media outlets or the broadcasters to basically raise awareness. It's going to be a very big campaign for us to save free speech and free press. Now, the reshuffle. So as I said, I'm making this video, the reshuffle is still ongoing, but the biggest news of the day is what happened to the Chancellor Sajid Javid. Now, Sajid Javid is the guy who is been coming out with a lot of interventionist policies, all the weird policies that are coming out of number 10, including pushing for HS2. The clash between Sajid Javid and Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson was quite public in the last few days, and basically Saj pushed the government to go ahead with HS2. But the news today is that Sajid Javid was forced out. As Dominic Cummings basically told Sajid Javid that if he wants to stay in his job, he has to fire all his political advisors and to do a complete reform of the Treasury. And Sajid Javid cried and left. The winter is truly Cummings. This is a very classic Dom move. Now, I know that a lot of people like Sajid Javid as a person. Now, this is all part of the plan by Dominic Cummings. He said previously that at times it will seem chaotic and not proper number 10 process to some, but the point of this government is to do things differently and better. And this always looks messy. And I've met Sajid a few times. He's a great guy, he's a nice person, but it's irrelevant to politics. It's irrelevant to having a very important job. Just because you like someone as a friend, or you like their face, you could still disagree with their approach when it comes to politics and policies. And that's what's happening with Sajid. There's a lot of things that's going on right now with the reshuffles. Most people have actually, big names have stayed in their job. Dominic Raab, Liz Truss. But we are going to keep you guys posted on that tomorrow, hopefully. Actually, tomorrow you might not have a video from me because I'll be flying to London, but I'll see you guys on Saturday anyway. If you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe and click on the bell next to it. We have a daily show apart from tomorrow at 5:45 p.m. If you want to follow my social media, Twitter and Instagram, you can find the details on the screen. I'm Tousi. I'll see you guys on Saturday with a new video.